Here's the front face for the spice rack. So these two pieces that I'm gluing right now, they are actually made up of 3 smaller pieces themselves. So now, when this cures, I will have one single front piece. Reason for gluing the pieces together on their edge rather than using a single piece is the grain direction, because I want all the grains on the lower cabinets to be horizontal. If I were to cut it from a single piece like this, it would be the only vertical grain of all the lower cabinets and would look a little odd. So there is a problem with a piece like this, where the grain runs perpendicular to the overall length. This is going to have some flex. So, a bit bendier than you'd want it to be. Depending on where the handle is, it might cause problems down the road. Also, if I were to accidentally kick this, it'll probably snap. Whereas this, even at over 10 feet in length, if I were to kick this with the intention of breaking it, I'll probably end up breaking my toe instead. So, as you can see, I've dug out these 2 channels, 1/2 inch deep. Just going to quickly square the corners. So I'll let that sit overnight. Now that the 1/2 inch splines are glued into place, I'm not really concerned about the flex anymore. And I will clean up all the plane marks later. On to the back. So for this, I'm going to use a single piece going vertical because you can't really see it. It's narrower than it needs to be, so I'm going to glue these pieces to the edge. But I'm going to leave this gap here because I need to make a notch. And the extensions have been glued. So after I plane off the glue, I need to make this cut here, and then this one, and then like I said, notch this out, and then cut it to length. The notches are there because the rack needs to sit on top of this slide, and also the one in the middle. You'll see how that sits on there later, I guess. Also made this cutout in the middle here so that when the rack is closed, the back face isn't squishing the range cord. These are the two bottoms, 1/2-inch Baltic birch. I've got the front taped off because just like the drawers, I'll be gluing that portion into the mortise on the front, so I don't want to get poly on there. And again, just like the drawers, it's getting the 4 layers in total, sanding in between with the last one in satin. And now to get rid of the ugly plane marks with the plane. The bottom has been mortised already. I'm just getting set up for the middle now. So that block that's clamped there, that's going to be my guardrail. Just need to start out one of these pencil mark, run it along the guard, and finish at the other mark. And just like the drawers, I'm going to fasten the back to the bottom straight through. So I'm taking care of the pre-drilling. And the countersinking as well. I have the ends pre-drilled as well, so I just have to line them up and drive it in. So something like that. I just want to test this before I go any further. Gaps are looking good. I might need to nudge it just a hair to the left. Well, the clearances look good though. So, yeah, I'd say that's good to go. Okay, so for the dividers, I know for the top, about 8 inches in, I want a divider here. That'll be for the cooking oils. And then around the middle, I'm going to want another divider. So that's the marking for the top divider. It's going to stand like that. And in terms of height, can't be the same as the front, so I will cut it off here. Here's the bottom divider. So fasten up from here and down from there. And just like the back being notched, this will also be notched right here. I decided to attach this piece between the divider and the back as reinforcement, just to give the rack a bit more stability against the constant push and pull from the upper corner. It was a good thing that I took the divider out to make the addition, because it made me realize that I drilled on the wrong side of the mark. So I'll have to fill in those later. So here I've got a scrap piece cut to the exact width. I'm going to be using this as a spacer. Moving on to the flask holders now. First, I'm going to get these cut to size. Now I'm going to square them up. have the squares clamped to the same height, with the middle marked here and here. So now I drop the holder, line up the middle for the pre-drilling and countersink. It's not enough room for the impact to fit, so I'm using the adapter here. And because this side gets seen, I'm using trim screws to get the smallest footprint. For the back, I am countersinking and using wider head screws. And the same deal for the lower holder. There it is, assembled. So in a bit, I need to take this all apart in order to do the next step. So I will make the cutouts for the holders then. Obviously, I want to keep the same theme as the rest of the drawer units, so I'll be adding the rod fence element as well as the side trims to cover up the plywood edges. I already sorted out the rods and had them cut the size. So 2 for the back fence of the oil compartment. This one is for the top right corner. 2 more for the front fence, front and back for here, and front and back for here. So if you've seen the drawer making videos, you know what's coming. Time to figure out which rod goes where, the rotation that it's at, and the exact spacing, and then get them all traced out. This isn't the hardest thing to do, but it can easily get confusing. And if you're not paying close attention to how each rod lines up with the different face and their specific orientation, you could end up routing out the wrong shape. Once everything is scribed, I cut out the circle and peel off the tape. This is only to help me during the routing process. The router has a shroud for the vacuum, which is a bit smoky, and I find it hard to see the marking on any of the darker wood. So the brighter outline of the circle helps me see better where the border is. It's pretty tedious. Alright, so everything's been disassembled, ready for the routing. And then for the flask holders, I've got all the markings laid out here. So what's going to happen is I'm going to take a 1 1/4 inch bit and drill this point about 3/16 deep to make the ledge. And then I'm going to take a 1 inch bit and drill in the same spot, but this time drill right through. Then I'll make the cuts along these lines in order to get these guys out. rounded the openings with the rasp, and then gave the whole thing a good sanding. Here it is, everything routed. The bottom divider piece was interesting, with the two different holes meeting in the center. Next few steps again should be familiar if you've seen the other videos. Taking the edges off with the 100 grit and rounding all the corners. Texturing all the surface with the restorer using the 4-inch wire brush. Staining. And finally, the layers of poly. So this again, I need to rip down the middle to make the edge trims. That's too high. This is not hazelnut, by the way. I ran out of hazelnuts. This is actually maple. But I don't think anyone will notice. I used up what was left of all the straight hazelnuts. It's not part of any group of fence, and it's kind of a tucked away element anyways. The fact that it's not matching, I don't think anyone will notice. Luckily, unlike the drawers, I only have to do this once. I don't need to do this for both sides of the spice rack, as the right side can't be seen. Pinch of glue. Stick. A little bit more glue. And because it's already got poly, I don't care about the squeeze out. So this thing that I'm done staining right now is it's going to be the backer piece for the flask holders. Should give it a more of a like a mini cabinet compartment kind of look. I don't know. We'll see. Well, let's see then. So that's it. That's the spice rack. The oil compartment was something I wanted right at the front. I wanted to be able to grab it, use it, and then put it back easily, which is why there's no fence here or any kind of a ceiling. The spice compartment, I was thinking of putting in another floor at the top, but then I thought it might get in the way. When you reach in here, trying to take out the ones in the back might be a bit tight for that. So maybe not a double row, maybe just a single, something similar to the width of these containers maybe, and then have it line up with the back row there. I was also thinking about a short row up here, up at the top horizontally, but the slides and also the clip, they get in the way. So for now, I'm just going to leave it, just use it the way it is and see if anything comes up. This compartment is fine. Now the flask. This is something my wife is pretty keen on, so I really wanted to incorporate it. The flask itself is from Michael's. It's pretty stable. Quite solid actually. And it was the perfect size with a wide enough opening so it pours easily, and also you can load it easily. And they do look cool hanging on the holders. So yeah, I think it turned out pretty decent. Wife is super happy with it. And that's about that.